Nick raised his voice.
Shut up. You will do what I tell you to do. You should be grateful that I married someone like you.
With that, Nick suddenly slapped me across the face. I was so shocked that I lost my words. What? Nick coldly commanded.
Go cool off outside. I don't care if you don't come back.
Being hit by a man for the first time, I was in shock. I couldn't move, and as time passed, pain and fear overwhelmed me. I can't take it anymore. Thinking this, I finally decided to divorce and leave this house. I had been secretly preparing for this moment. My name is Amy, an ordinary part-time housewife. I've been married for 3 years. Everything checks out this month. Muttering this, I checked my bank balance. Saving and frugality have been my hobbies since I was single. Growing up in a modest household, I was accustomed to a frugal lifestyle. Thanks to this, I never minded living modestly even as an adult. I focused on saving and investing as much as possible. I invested my savings in mutual funds and stocks, growing my assets. Having studied business administration in college, I had a good understanding of economics and finance. I started investing in college and hadn't experienced any major losses. My dream was to someday buy my own house and live happily with my family. That dream was about to come true. I met my husband, Nick, at our workplace, which ended in a relationship. He was gentle and decent looking, making him popular among the female staff. Nick and I gradually bonded over work, leading to dating and eventually marriage. We don't have children yet. Entering our 3rd year of marriage, and considering my age, I'm starting to want to have children. However, our daily lives often don't align due to both of us working. Nick shows no interest in starting a family, and often changes the subject when I try to discuss it. I thought about taking a break from work to focus on our relationship, but it's challenging without Nick's cooperation. Nick's lack of interest in family planning might be because he's comfortable with our current lifestyle. We work at the same company but in different departments. Nick's department has less overtime but lower pay, while mine is a key division with higher pay but more overtime. After his regular work hours, Nick spends time playing games or relaxing until I come home. But having a child would inevitably change this lifestyle, which might be why Nick is hesitant about starting a family. My goal is to build a house for our possibly growing family someday. That's why I'm continuing to save money. I'm sure Nick will be more cooperative once we have children. However, another problem weighs heavily on my mind, my mother-in-law. She lives just 5 minutes away from our apartment. After we got married, my father-in-law's health rapidly deteriorated. We moved closer to take care of him, but he passed away before we got the chance. Since then, my mother-in-law has been coming to our house almost every day. Occasional visits would be one thing, but she always has something to complain about. I'm home.
You're quite late.
Without looking at me, my mother-in-law muttered in a low voice. Good evening, Mom.
Do you always come home this late? Are you really working?
Am I going to be greeted with nasty behavior like this again today? Exhausted, I want to spend at least a peaceful time at home. However, my mother-in-law's words have made my home a place where I no longer feel at ease.
So, what about Nick's dinner now that you're home so late?
As usual, she's only concerned about Nick, who always comes home on time and lazes around. I'll start preparing now.
You're starting now? Do you know what time it is?
Beside me, Nick is still absorbed in his game. Where has the kind Nick gone? Or is this his true nature? Why should I have to prepare meals for an adult man? We both work. If Nick helped with the housework, my burden would be lighter. These thoughts swirl in my mind. My mother-in-law, a lifelong housewife, has never worked and doesn't understand the struggles of working women. If she saw Nick helping, she'd insist it's my job and interfere, likely leading to more harsh words from her. But realistically, I don't have to worry about that since Nick never does any housework.
Amy, are you listening?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'll start preparing dinner now. Perhaps doing all the housework alone is the most peaceful solution.
There is no need. I've already prepared Nick's food.
I see. Thank you. Of course, there's nothing prepared for me. I'll just make my own food. Maybe that's for the best. Unfortunately, I've become accustomed to this situation. As I was preparing my dinner in the kitchen, I overheard this conversation.
Nick, listen. I'm going to lunch with friends at a new French restaurant. It's going to cost $200. Can you help me out?
Sure.
I also want some new clothes and to go to the beauty salon. About $500 should cover it.
Okay, I got it.
Nick casually agreed while still playing his game. How do you even spend $200 on a lunch with friends? Later, Nick rummaged through my bag and sneakily took out $500 from my wallet to give to his mother.
Thank you, you're a lifesaver.
My mother-in-law thanked only Nick and took the money. I was dumbfounded. What are these two doing? Did they forget I exist? While my mother-in-law was in the bathroom, I approached Nick, filled with anger. Hey, why are you using my wallet?
I had no choice. I'm out of cash.
But it's not okay to just take money from someone's wallet without asking. The fact that his mother accepted the money is also a problem. If you can't afford it, you should say no. We don't have that kind of extra money. As Nick and I were arguing, his mother came back.
Is there a problem?
Just as I was about to tell her what I think, Nick interrupted me.
It's okay, nothing's wrong. Everything's fine.
Nick doesn't seem to understand how limited our family budget is. I manage all our finances, and most of the income is mine, covering everything from rent to daily expenses. Nick uses his entire salary on his hobbies and leisure, including gaming and gambling. When I ask him to help out with the expenses at least a bit, he ends up going off on a tangent. In fact, just last month, I saw him give his mother $500 when she wanted to buy new clothes and a bag. Different months, similar things: clothes, cosmetics, hair salon, and spa treatments, making it almost always $500 every month. I'm troubled by such expenses, and then his mother said this.
It seems you're fighting over money. But don't make a big deal about giving some pocket money. It's not bad to support your parents. It's nice to see an elderly mom dressing up and looking good.
I'm appalled by her indifference. Both mother and son have a strange sense of money. My hard-earned savings are disappearing due to her extravagance. Determined today, I boldly said to her, "We can't afford this. Giving $500 every month is not possible for us." At that moment, she let out a big sigh.
Oh dear. You don't understand. This money is for social expenses. Buying new clothes and accessories, and dining out with neighbors is part of social activities.
I wonder why she needs to choose fancy French restaurants and upscale dining places for neighborhood interactions. She's the type to show off, always buying expensive clothes and paying for others' meals. But this doesn't actually earn her popularity. Often, people just take advantage of her.
You're not good with neighborhood relations, are you? I'm doing it for you.
I never asked her to do that. She's just acting on her own.
Stop being stingy with social expenses. Surely, you're not cutting back on Nick's social expenses too, are you?
Amy is strict about money. Even the money for drinks and arcade is limited, and it's tough.
Nick's spending on drinks and arcade games is purely for entertainment, not social expenses.
Being stingy with company relations makes it hard for Nick to advance in his career. Poor thing. Amy, think a little more.
Nick and his mother continue to steer the conversation their way. Today was another terrible day. After receiving the money and venting her feelings, she seemed relieved. She headed towards the door, and I thought she was leaving. But then, she turned to look at me sharply again.
Nick, if you ever want to divorce, you can do it anytime. Your room is still just as you left it. You can always come back.
Thanks, Mom.
His mother slammed the door and left. What did she mean by what she said earlier? Turning around, I saw Nick playing his game again. Angry, I confronted him. Why did you give her $500? How are you getting such a large amount every month? Nick continued his game, ignoring my words. I stood in front of the TV and tried to get his attention. Are you listening? I'm asking you what you mean by this. Unable to see the TV, he replied reluctantly.
What's the big deal? It's just $500. Don't be so petty.
Do you understand how hard it is to pull $500 from our budget?
But Mom said it's for socializing. It's a necessary expense.
That's ridiculous. Why does it cost $500 just to talk with neighbors? You said Mom pays for all the meals, right? It's strange. No matter what I said, Nick wouldn't listen. Whether it's because he finds it bothersome or just wants to get back to his game, he won't take my words seriously. Also, are you considering divorce?
If you keep being so uppity, I might think about it.
Nick didn't deny the possibility of divorce. I couldn't believe he was even considering it.
Enough of this. Move. I want to play my game.
He said, pushing me aside to return to his game. Maybe divorce is the best option. I remember the kind Nick from before, but I couldn't bring myself to decide on a divorce. Then something happened. I stopped by a supermarket on my way home from work, but I didn't have cash, so I tried to use my credit card.
I'm sorry, but this card can't be used.
Why is that?
It seems you've exceeded your credit limit.
What? Really? Feeling a sense of dread, I hurried home. Nick, are you there? There was no response from Nick. I found his bag on the floor, with documents scattered all around. What's this? The floor was littered with credit card bills. These cards were in our family's name, linked to my account. Nick has a poor sense of money, always maxing out the credit limit. Because of this, his personal card had been suspended due to late payments. Therefore, he had no other choice but to use our shared family card. Hastily checking the bills, I found charges for items I didn't recognize: clothes, bags, shoes, French restaurants. The total amount was $50,000. Stunned, I kept checking to make sure, but there was no mistake. Then Nick and his mother arrived. Hey, this credit card has a charge of $50,000. Did you use it?
Yeah, I did.
What do you mean?
I was helping Mom with shopping and dining.
Why did you use this card?
I had no choice. My own card is unusable. It's my way of supporting my mom.
This card draws from my account.
My account? We're married. There is no such thing as your account and my account. What's yours is mine.
I felt weak in the knees. The money I'd saved diligently was used up so easily.
Amy, it's wrong to say it's your money. It's a shared asset between spouses.
As usual, his mother showed no regret.
To lie about not having enough money, how greedy can you be?
Furious, with no apology from Nick, just his defiance, I reached my limit. Stop joking around. This is the money I saved since before we were married. I want you to return it to me.
Oh, don't be like that. Shared assets are common in marriage.
Right. Since you're not supportive of parents, I'm doing it for you. You should be thankful.
Despite giving Nick a monthly allowance, he was misusing the credit card. That money includes what I saved before marriage. Using it without permission is theft. Give it back.
What? Calling me a thief?
Nick seemed offended by the word a thief and retorted irritably.
It's a family card. Of course, as family, I can use it.
Exactly. Nick always does the right thing.
Besides, you didn't notice until a $50,000 bill arrived. So it's not a problem.
I rarely used the account linked to this credit card, so I didn't notice right away. But that's no excuse for their actions. You don't understand the issue. Return my savings. Unable to contain my anger, tears flowed. I pleaded, overwhelmed with emotion.
Shut up. You will do what I tell you to do. You should be grateful that I married someone like you.
With that, Nick suddenly slapped me across the face. What?
Go cool off outside. I don't care if you don't come back.
Being hit by a man for the first time, I was in shock. I couldn't move, and as time passed, pain and fear overwhelmed me. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to divorce and leave this house. That night, I planned my next steps and fell asleep. The next morning, Nick suddenly presented divorce papers with his signature already on them. What's this?
If you complain again, it's immediate divorce. I will not tolerate any backtalk. I will manage the money from now on.
With that, Nick took the passbook and left for work. I never thought I'd get the divorce papers so easily. Does he think I will still want to live with him? Using divorce as a threat? I realized how out of touch Nick's thinking was. But it worked in my favor. I decided to make use of these divorce papers. My love for Nick had completely vanished. Plus, I had been steadily investing in mutual funds and stocks since my single days. I managed to save about $500,000 without any major losses, enough to cover my living expenses. Of course, Nick, the spendthrift, knew nothing about this. It was in a separate account. Having multiple bank accounts for safety, I knew the passbook Nick took was just one of many. I filled in my part of the divorce papers and hurriedly prepared to leave the house. Afterwards, I went to the municipal office and submitted the divorce papers. That day, I moved back to my parents' home. My parents were surprised by the amount of luggage I had brought back after a long time. I explained the situation to my family and decided to stay with them for a while. While relaxing at home, I began searching for real estate information. I needed to find a new place to live since my parents' home was a bit far from my work. Then, I found an interesting property. It was a newly built single-family home, close to the station and only a 15-minute walk to my office. Interested, I visited the real estate agency right away to hear more. The property was still under construction, with completion expected in 2 months. Interior work hadn't started yet, and they were open to my preferences. I heard there were many interested buyers due to its great location, but I decided to buy it on the spot. I completed the payment that same day. While staying at my parents' home and preparing for my new house, one day, Nick, my ex-husband, approached me at work. Busy with my new home and work, I had completely pushed Nick out of my mind.
Amy, where were you? You never answer my calls.
Nick had called me dozens, even hundreds of times, but I never responded.
And what about the divorce papers? I asked at the office, and they said they were already submitted. What are you doing?
What do you mean? You were the one who gave me those papers. I just did what you said.
Don't be ridiculous. It's not okay for you to submit the divorce papers on your own.
Despite giving me the papers, Nick was being selfishly uncooperative.
Divorce papers filed without permission will not be accepted. If I sue, you will be charged with forgery of documents. Serves you right.
But those divorce papers came from you. Your signature is on them. Despite this, Nick refused to listen and started yelling in my office.
I won't accept it, absolutely not.
Employees passing by turned to look at us. The divorce is already finalized. I've reported it to the company. You should tell your supervisor too. As I tried to walk away from Nick, he suddenly grabbed my arm.
If you think you can act as you please, you're gravely mistaken. You won't get away with it.
With those words, he left. The life in my new house was more comfortable than I imagined. I arranged my favorite furniture and appliances, enjoying the space tailored to my liking. Previously, returning home was a burden, but now I found comfort in my time at home. One day, the doorbell rang. When I checked the monitor, there was no one there. Who is it? But there was no response. Feeling something was off, I looked around from the balcony, but saw no one. The next day, while I was home on a day off, there was a sudden loud knock on the door. Rushing outside, I found my former mother-in-law standing there.
What are you doing here? Moving out on your own, what were you thinking? Shouldn't this be a family decision?
Nick hadn't told his mother anything. Then I remembered the previous night's doorbell incident. Nick must have followed me and found out my new address. Haven't you heard from Nick? We are divorced.
Such a trivial fight leading to divorce is too much. Withdraw the papers right away.
That's right. If you don't withdraw, I'll sue you for forgery.
They were still saying such things. Their words no longer moved me. I don't understand what you want from me. Those divorce papers were filled out by you. While Nick and I were talking, his mother entered the house and started snooping around.
Quite a spacious house. Is it a two-family home? It's big enough for me to move into.
Excuse me, could you please not enter without permission?
How rude! To treat your own parent like a thief.
Nick and his mother were as unreasonable as ever. I kept my emotions in check and responded calmly. Those divorce papers were filled out by Nick himself, and his clear signature is on every page. If you still want to sue for forgery, let's settle it in court with our lawyers. My words seemed to make his mother accept reality, but then she said,
So, even after the divorce, this house belongs to Nick, right? Nick and I will live here.
I was surprised to hear that. She didn't understand Nick's real situation. With his low income and suspended credit card, there's no way he could afford to buy a house. This house is mine. I bought it with my savings.
What? How did you buy a house?
I explained to them about my earnings from investments. When it became clear the house wasn't in Nick's name, his mother got angry.
And what about us?
Her panic was understandable. After hearing about the new house from Nick, she had sold their family home. Assuming they would live with me, she made a drastic decision.
Fine, then we'll settle this in court. I'll have the divorce withdrawn, be prepared. I won't accept the divorce.
With that declaration, Nick and his mother left. I doubted Nick would actually sue. The divorce papers he signed left no room for doubt, and it seemed unlikely he could afford a lawyer. Whatever happened, I was prepared to face it and continued living alone in my new house. For a while, nothing happened, and I thought the situation had settled. However, Nick started showing up at my house, pressuring for reconciliation.
Amy, I was wrong. Let's start over.
Recalling the past, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I stayed cautious and ignored all contact and visits from Nick. But his behavior escalated.
Hey, don't ignore me. If you don't come out, I'll break the window.
His actions and words became more threatening, so I avoided any contact with him even more. Nick began to persistently follow me at work and constantly sent messages. This made it hard to concentrate on my job. After work, he often ambushed me at the company entrance or near my home. Feeling unsafe, I started going home with friends and reported the situation to my boss for help. However, Nick's actions began to seriously disrupt my daily life, so I decided to consult the police. As a result, the police started patrolling my neighborhood twice a day. Nick was caught by a patrolling officer while shouting outside my new home and was arrested on the spot. He was charged with stalking, threatening, and disorderly conduct, and was arrested. Naturally, he was also dismissed from the company. Currently, Nick is likely serving his sentence in prison. The fact that he was arrested for threatening spread throughout the neighborhood. His mother, whose relations with the neighbors deteriorated, eventually moved far away. According to neighborhood gossip, she now lives alone in an old shabby apartment. Finally freed from this dreadful situation, I immediately contacted my parents back in the countryside. Having raised me with care, I proposed that they come and live with me in my new house. My parents happily accepted the offer. We were never a wealthy family, but now I feel a deep joy in being able to give something back to my parents. After not being able to show financial support for so long, the thought of now being able to repay my parents fills my heart. Also, I have plans to invite friends over for a barbecue or drinks at my new house. Having often sacrificed myself in life, I vowed to value myself more and spend each day to the fullest. I am committed to making my life more meaningful from now on.